Gather round the fire and pull in close. The woods have ears tonight, and the darkness has a memory. What I'm about to tell you isn't one of those tales with a monster that has claws and fangs. The things that truly haunt us. The things that follow you home and crawl into bed with you. They don't need a body. They just need a voice and a place to be heard. This story is about such a place. It's about the Whisper Beacon. Our story begins with 4 friends. You've known people like them. Maybe you are people like them. There was Liam. He was the anchor, the planner, the kind of guy who had a topographic map and a compass while everyone else just used their phones. He was dating Chloe, and he saw his main purpose in life as keeping her safe, a feeling that had only intensified since the accident. Chloe was the heart of the group. She was bright and empathetic, the one who'd pack extra snacks for everyone and be the first to suggest a sing-along. But for the past year, a quiet sadness had clung to her like a damp coat. A car crash. A younger sister who wasn't there anymore. She tried to hide the cracks, but Liam always saw them. Then there was Ben. Ben was pure city, cynical, witty, and surgically attached to his phone. He viewed nature as a necessary inconvenience to get to a cool photo opportunity for his social media. He was the skeptic, the one who'd roll his eyes at ghost stories and try to find the logical explanation for every bump in the night. His skepticism was his shield. And finally there was Maya. She was the dreamer, the historian. While Ben saw a tree, Maya saw a silent witness to a century of seasons. She was prone to anxiety, a worrier by nature, but her fascination with the past often overshadowed her fears, pushing her to explore places others would shun. The 4 of them were 3 days into a week-long trek through the unforgiving backcountry of the Sierra Nevada. Liam had planned the route meticulously, a challenging but rewarding loop that would take them far from any trace of civilization. The first 2 days were idyllic. The air was crisp, the sky was a deep, impossible blue, and the camaraderie was easy and warm. It was on the afternoon of the 3rd day that the world changed. The sky, with an unnatural swiftness, began to curdle. The blue bruised to a sickly purple gray. The wind, once a gentle whisper through the pines, began to howl, clawing at their clothes with sharp, invisible fingers. "Liam," Chloe shouted over the rising gale, her voice tight with worry. The forecast said clear for the whole week. Liam pulled the map from his pack, his face grim. The paper flapped violently in his hands. "This isn't a squall. This is a full-blown storm. We're too exposed out here. We need shelter. Now." Ben scoffed, pulling his hood tighter. "And where are you going to find a hotel? The Ritz-Carlton of the forest?" "Look," Maya pointed, her voice thin but sharp. She was pointing up, towards a high, craggy ridge that loomed over them. Perched on the very edge, like a skeletal bird of prey, was a structure. A tall, spindly tower with a glass-enclosed room at its peak. It was silhouetted against the churning, malevolent sky. A fire lookout tower. "It's got to be abandoned," Liam said, squinting. "But it's our best shot. 4 walls and a roof are better than nothing." The climb was brutal. Rain, cold and hard as pellets of ice, began to fall. The wind threatened to peel them from the slippery rock face. Every step was a battle. Ben grumbled incessantly. Chloe's face was pale with fear and exhaustion, and Maya, despite her anxiety, seemed strangely energized, her eyes fixed on the tower above. They reached the base of the structure as the first clap of thunder cracked. The sky, open. It wasn't just loud. It felt solid, a physical blow that vibrated through the soles of their boots and into their bones. The tower was even more decrepit up close. Rust bled down its metal legs in long, weeping streaks. The stairs that spiraled around it were flimsy, many of the bolts having long since surrendered to the elements. "No way," Ben said, shaking his head. "I'd rather take my chances in a ditch. This thing is a death trap. It's this, or hypothermia," Liam countered, his voice leaving no room for argument. He tested the first few steps. They groaned in protest, but held. One at a time, go slow, they ascended into the sky, the world dropping away below them, swallowed by the rain and the gathering gloom. With each step, the wind shrieked louder, a symphony of desolation. Finally, they reached the top platform and huddled in front of the door to the lookout room. A heavy, old-fashioned padlock held it shut, green with verdigris. Well, so much for that, Ben said with a bitter laugh. Liam didn't hesitate. He found a loose chunk of rock, and with 3 powerful blows, smashed the lock. It broke with a piteous crunch. He pushed the door open. The room inside was a single, dusty square, enclosed on all 4 sides by large panes of glass. In the center stood a circular map table, an alidade, a rotating sighting instrument, still resting on its surface like the hand of a dead clock. Against one wall was a small cot with a moldering mattress, a wood-burning stove, and a desk. And on that desk, silent and coated in a thick layer of dust, was a vintage radio set, complete with a large, old-fashioned microphone. The air was thick with the smell of dust, rust, and something else. Something like old regrets. But it was dry. It was safe from the storm. They stumbled in, dropping their heavy packs, the sound of the raging tempest immediately muffled by the glass. For a moment, they just stood there, catching their breath, the 4 of them sealed in a glass box on top of the world. "I wonder who lived here," Chloe said, her voice soft. She ran a hand over the dusty map table, leaving a clean streak. In the grime, Maya, her historian instincts taking over, was already at the desk. She carefully picked up a thick leather-bound book, a logbook. She blew a cloud of dust from the cover. "Let's see," she whispered, her earlier anxiety replaced by a scholar's excitement. She opened it to the first page. The handwriting was a neat, disciplined cursive. Silas Weaver, commenced watch, June 12, 1958. The view is God's own, and the silence is my companion. For the next hour, as the storm hammered against their glass sanctuary, Maya read excerpts from the logbook. They learned about Silas's lonely life. He wrote about lightning storms that set the forests ablaze, about the migration of deer, about the profound, soul-crushing solitude. He seemed a poetic, thoughtful man. Ben, bored, wandered the small room, tapping on the glass and finding, to his disgust, that he had 0 bars. "Of course, we're in a communications tower, and I can't even get a signal. That's for watching for fires, genius, not for watching cat videos," Maya retorted, without looking up from the book. His entries get weirder towards the end. She flipped to the last few pages. The neat cursive had devolved into a frantic, barely legible scrawl. The ink was faded, as if the words themselves were trying to disappear. August 4th, 1961. Maya read, her voice hushed. "The silence is no longer empty. It has a voice. It comes through the radio at night, even when the power is off. It whispers. It knows things. It knows my mother's name." A chill, colder than the wind outside, snaked through the room. Chloe wrapped her arms around herself. Maya continued, her voice trembling slightly. August 10th, it's learning. It mimics the voices of the fire crews I talk to. Yesterday, I heard a call for help from a sector I know is empty. It's trying to lure me out. It feeds on loneliness. I can feel it, pressing against the inside of my skull. She turned the last page. There was only one entry, a single, jagged sentence. August 15th. It knows my voice now. It knows my thoughts. I can't leave, but I won't let it have me. I will be silent. And that was it. The rest of the book was empty. A profound, uncomfortable silence fell over the four of them. The only sound was the howling of the wind. The story of Silas Weaver, the lonely sentinel, hung in the air, a ghost in its own right. Creepy, Ben said, trying to sound dismissive, but his voice was a little too tight. The guy probably just went stir-crazy. Cabin fever. He, boom, sounds terrified, Chloe whispered, looking at the old radio set with a new sense of dread. Liam, ever the pragmatist, stepped in to break the tension. All right, let's not get spooked by an old book. He was alone up here for years. It's understandable. Let's get some food out. Try to get warm. They tried. They ate their cold rations and huddled in their sleeping bags, the temperature in the glass room plummeting as night fell. The storm showed no signs of abating. The thunder was a constant rolling growl, and lightning would periodically illuminate the room in a series of stark, blinding flashes, revealing their pale, anxious faces to one another. They drifted into an uneasy sleep, all except for Chloe. She lay awake, the story of Silas and the memory of her sister wrestling in her mind. She stared out at the black, churning chaos, feeling as isolated as the long-dead watchman. It was sometime after midnight when it happened. Crackle. Hiss. The sound was quiet, almost imperceptible beneath the roar of the storm. But it was there. Chloe sat bolt upright, her heart hammering against her ribs. The sound was coming from the radio. Yes, pop, crackle. Liam, she whispered, shaking him. Liam, wake up. He mumbled, half asleep. What is it? The radio. She breathed. It's on. Now all four of them were awake, sitting up in their sleeping bags, staring at the dusty, silent machine. The static grew louder, a dry, whispering sound. It was impossible. The tower had no power. The radio was an antique, a museum piece. Ben fumbled for his headlamp, its powerful beam cutting through the darkness and landing squarely on the radio. It's a stray signal, he said, his voice straining to be logical. Atmospheric interference from the lightning. It's making the speaker vibrate, that's all. But then, through the static, a voice emerged. It wasn't a radio announcer or a pilot. It was a whisper, a faint, ethereal whisper that seemed to slither out of the speaker and curl into the cold air of the room, and it whispered a single word. Lily. Chloe let out a sound like a choked sob. Her blood ran cold. Lily was her sister's name. The four friends sat frozen, the name hanging in the air between them, more terrifying than any scream. Ben's scientific explanation evaporated. Liam stared at Chloe, his face a mask of shock and concern. Maya's eyes were wide with terror, fixed on the radio, her mind screaming Silas's words back at her. It knows things. The static hissed for another moment, and then fell silent. The room was plunged back into a silence so deep, it felt heavy, broken only by the storm and Chloe's ragged breathing. A coincidence, Ben stammered, his bravado utterly shattered. It has to be a coincidence. It was just static. We just thought we heard it. It said her name. Chloe wept, rocking back and forth. It said her name. Liam scrambled over to her, pulling her into a fierce hug. Shh, it's okay. It's okay. Ben's right. It was just the storm, playing tricks on us. But as he held her, he shot a dark, fearful look at the radio. He didn't believe it was a coincidence any more than she did. The rest of the night was a waking nightmare. No one slept. They sat huddled together for warmth and for courage, their eyes glued to the silent radio, waiting. But it remained quiet. The entity, whatever it was, had planted its seed of terror and retreated into the static to let it grow. By morning, the storm had lessened to a steady, miserable drizzle. The world outside their glass cage was a wash of gray mist. They couldn't see more than 10 feet from the tower. They were trapped in a cloud. The mood was grim. Chloe's face was tear-streaked and pale. Ben was jumpy, his earlier skepticism replaced by a raw, nervous energy. Maya seemed to have aged a decade overnight. Only Liam tried to maintain a semblance of control. "All right," he announced, his voice artificially loud. "The storm's passing. We'll give it another hour for the mist to clear, and then we're leaving this place." "We should go, now," Chloe said, her voice thin. "I don't want to be in this room another second." "We can't see the path, Chloe. It's too dangerous," Liam insisted. "Just one more hour." It was 1 hour too long. They were packing their gear, the silence thick with unspoken fear, when the radio crackled again. This time, there was no preamble of static. A voice spoke, clear and immediate, and it was Liam's voice. "You're so slow, Ben. Can't even keep up. You're just dead weight." Ben, who was struggling with a stubborn buckle on his pack, froze. He looked up, his eyes wide, first at the radio, then at Liam, who was standing on the opposite side of the room. "What did you just say?" Ben asked, his voice low and dangerous. Liam looked genuinely bewildered. "What? I didn't say anything." "Don't lie to me," Ben snapped, standing up. "I heard you. You said I was dead weight. I'm telling you, I didn't speak." Liam insisted, his frustration mounting. It was the radio. It's doing what the logbook said. It's mimicking. Crackle. And then a new voice. This time, it was Chloe's. A perfect imitation, right down to the gentle lilt. "I can't breathe, Liam. You're always watching me, always fixing everything. Just leave me alone." Liam flinched as if he'd been struck. He turned to Chloe, his expression wounded. "Chloe, why would you say that?" Chloe's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I didn't. I swear, I didn't say that. It's the tower." They fumed. Thing in the radio was a master artist, and their minds were its canvas. It wasn't just repeating words. It was harvesting their deepest insecurities and painting them in the air with the voices of those they trusted most. It was turning them against each other, isolating them just as it had isolated Silas. The next voice was Ben's, aimed at Maya, whose anxiety was now at a fever pitch. "Stop whimpering, Maya. It's pathetic. You're the reason we're always held back." Maya let out a small, wounded cry and shrank away from Ben, even though he was standing perfectly still, his face a picture of horror. "This isn't real," Ben muttered, running his hands through his hair. "It's picking up our thoughts. It's some kind of psychic resonance field, amplified by the iron in the mountain and the storm." He was desperately trying to build a cage of logic around a thing that defied it. He strode towards the radio, his eyes wild. "I'll fix it." "Ben, don't touch it," Maya screamed, remembering Silas's fate. But it was too late. Ben grabbed the radio set with both hands. intending to rip its wires out, to smash it, to silence it. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, a brilliant blue light erupted from the device. Ben's body went rigid. A terrible, gargling scream was torn from his throat as a powerful current, impossible and unreal, surged through him. He was thrown backwards, flying across the small room and slamming into the far wall with a sickening thud. He slid to the floor, smoke coiling from his badly burned hands, his body twitching. Chloe screamed. Liam rushed to Ben's side. He was unconscious but breathing. His palms were charred black. The room was filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burned flesh. And from the radio, a new sound. Laughter. It was a distorted, gurgling sound, a collage of all their voices twisted together into one triumphant, monstrous chuckle. Panic took over. Pure, animal panic. "We're leaving, now," Liam yelled, hoisting the semi-conscious Ben onto his shoulder. The weight was immense, but adrenaline surged through him. Maya, Chloe, grab the packs, adjust the essentials, go. Chloe and Maya scrambled to obey, their hands shaking so badly they could barely clip the buckles. The laughter from the radio faded, replaced by a soft, pleading whisper. It was Chloe's sister's voice again, Lily's voice. "Don't leave. Me again, Chloe. It's so cold here, so dark. Stay with me." Chloe froze, her hand on the door, her face a canvas of anguish. The entity was playing its trump card. "Chloe, don't listen to it," Liam shouted, his voice strained as he supported Ben. "It's not her. It's a trick." But the voice was so perfect, so full of sorrow. It was a poisoned arrow aimed directly at the wound in her soul. She stood, paralyzed, caught between the living and the dead. It was Maya who saved them. Maya, the anxious one, the dreamer. She grabbed Chloe's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Her face was awash with a strange, terrifying clarity. Silas wrote, "I will be silent," she said, her voice sharp and clear, cutting through the phantom whisper. "That's how you fight it. You don't listen. You don't react. You give it nothing." She yanked Chloe out of the door and onto the windy platform. Liam, groaning under Ben's weight, stumbled after them. They started their descent down the rickety, spiraling stairs. The wind and rain lashed at them, trying to tear them from the metal. The voice from the tower followed them, growing in strength, no longer needing the radio. It was in the wind now, in the rain. It was everywhere. It focused on Liam. It used his own voice, filled with self-loathing. "You failed them. Liam, you brought them here. Ben is hurt because of you. Chloe will never forgive you." Then it used his father's voice, a deep, disappointed baritone he hadn't heard in years. "I always knew you weren't strong enough." Liam's steps faltered. The weight of Ben, the weight of the words, was crushing him. His resolve was crumbling. He was the anchor, and his chain was breaking. "Stay," the voice cooed, now shifting back to Chloe's gentle tone. A voice that was coming not from the tower, but from inside his own head. "It's easier here. We can be safe. Just us. I'll take care of you. Just stay." He stopped. He looked back up at the glass box, at the peak of the tower, and for a moment it seemed like the most welcoming place in the world. A place of peace, away from failure and responsibility. A place to just stop. "Liam, no," Chloe screamed, her real voice cutting through the phantom one in his mind. She grabbed his arm, her face soaked with rain and tears. "Look at me. It's me. I'm real. We have to go." He looked from her desperate face back towards the tower, his mind a battlefield. It was then that Ben began to stir. He moaned, his eyes fluttering open. He looked around wildly, his gaze unfocused and full of terror. "It's too loud," he whimpered, struggling in Liam's grasp. "They won't stop whispering. Make them stop." He broke free from Liam's hold, scrambling away from them, back up the stairs, towards the tower. "Ben, no," Maya cried. He moved with a strange, desperate energy. "It's quieter in there," he called back to them, his voice sounding hollow and strange. It promised. It said it would be quiet in there. He reached the top platform, fumbled with the door, and disappeared inside the glass room. A moment later, the door swung shut. With a final echoing boom, they stared in horror. They knew, with a certainty that was colder than the rain, that they had just witnessed a man choose his own damnation. He had traded the world for a cage, just to make the voices stop. A new sound reached them then, carried on the wind. The crackle of the radio, coming back to life. And through the static, a new whisper started. It was faint, but it was unmistakably Ben's voice joining the chorus of the tower, becoming part of its eternal, hungry broadcast. That broke the spell. Liam, his face a mask of grim horror, turned and practically threw himself down the rest of the stairs. He grabbed Chloe and Maya, and they ran. They didn't run like hikers navigating a trail. They ran like prey, fleeing. A predator, crashing through the undergrowth, heedless of the branches that tore at their clothes and skin. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs gave out. They ran until the tower was no longer visible, until the memory of the whispers was drowned out by the pounding of their own blood in their ears. They made it back to civilization 2 days later, a trio of haunted, hollowed-out survivors. They never told the authorities the whole truth. How could they? They said Ben had fallen during the storm, that they'd been separated. His body was never found. The storyteller leans back, the firelight catching the weary, knowing look in their eyes. They let the silence stretch, allowing the full weight of the story to settle on the listeners. They say the three friends drifted apart after that. The shared trauma was a chasm, not a bridge. Maya gave up her history books. She couldn't bear to look into the past anymore. Chloe and Liam broke up. The entity in the tower had seen the tiny cracks in their relationship and had shattered them completely. Liam, they say, never led anything again. He became a follower, a man terrified of his own judgment. And the tower, the whisper beacon, it's still out there, still standing on that lonely ridge, wrapped in mist and memory. Most hikers don't even know the trail exists. It's been wiped from the newer maps, but sometimes a signal gets out. Campers with old shortwave radios, people driving through the deep valleys late at night. They sometimes pick up a strange broadcast on an empty frequency. It's faint, buried in static. It's the voice of a young man, a cynical voice, stripped of its humor, whispering secrets into the darkness. He whispers about your deepest regrets, your quietest fears. He tells you things you've never said aloud, and he'll tell you about a quiet place, a safe place, high above the world, where you can finally be free of all the noise. He's just looking for company, you see, because the one thing the tower cannot abide is silence.